A very warm welcome. Today we are going to complete one-shot revision of all the English lessons. Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare is a beautiful excerpt that captures the intense emotions of love at first sight. The story is set in Verona, where two powerful families, the Capulets and the Montagues, are bitter enemies. During a feast hosted by the Capulets, Romeo, a Montague, sneaks in disguise to see a woman named Rosaline. But instead, something unexpected happens. He sees Juliet. When Romeo sees Juliet, he is completely mesmerized. He says, "She teaches the torches to burn bright," meaning she is so radiant that even fire seems dull in comparison. He compares her to a rich jewel in the dark and a snowy dove among crows, highlighting her unmatched beauty and purity. Example: think of seeing a glowing diamond in a room full of pebbles. That's how Juliet stands out to Romeo. Now let's hear from Juliet. She feels the same powerful attraction towards Romeo. She wishes for the night to come quickly so she can see him again. Juliet describes Romeo as brighter than new snow on a raven's back, emphasizing his brilliance against the darkness. Upon her death, she asks for him to be cut into stars in the sky, saying he would make the night so beautiful that the world would forget about the garish sun. Both Romeo and Juliet use imagery of light and darkness to express their love. Romeo sees Juliet as a bright light, while Juliet finds Romeo making the night itself beautiful. This shows how their love shines through the hatred between their families. In this short excerpt, Shakespeare beautifully portrays the magic of love that rises above conflict and barriers. Romeo and Juliet teach us that true love is about seeing beauty in one another, even in the darkest of circumstances.
Nestled between France and Italy lies Monaco, a tiny kingdom with only 7,000 people. It has a king, a palace, and even an army, but with so few inhabitants, how does the prince support his lavish lifestyle? The answer lies in a single gaming house where people gamble on roulette. The prince profits whether they win or lose, making this his main source of revenue. But this monopoly isn't without its risks. One day, a murder occurs in Monaco, and the court must decide how to execute the criminal. The plan to use a guillotine from France, which is 16,000 francs, is too expensive, and Italy's offer of 12,000 francs is still too costly. After trying soldiers and reconsidering options, they decide to imprison the criminal for life by appointing a guard at a temporary jailhouse. But the cost of keeping him is even higher than execution, amounting to more than 600 francs annually, and considering that the man would live for 50 years more. In the end, the prince agrees to offer the criminal a pension to leave the kingdom. The man accepts, and with his pension, he starts a peaceful life as a market gardener across the border. Sometimes, the cost of justice can be more than anyone expects. And in Monaco, it's not just criminals who get a free ride, it's the prince too. Too dear, indeed. In On Children, Khalil Gibran offers a profound perspective on parenthood, reminding us, your children are not your children. They come through you, but they belong to life itself. Parents can offer love and guidance but must allow children to follow their own dreams and destinies. Gibran urges parents not to impose their thoughts, for children have their own paths to walk. He compares parents to bows and children to arrows. The divine archer bends the bow to send the arrows far and true. This bending symbolizes the sacrifices parents make, acts of love that require joy and acceptance. Parenthood is a delicate balance, nurturing your children while allowing them the freedom to grow. Both the flying arrow and the stable bow are equally cherished by the archer. Let us embrace this sacred bond, celebrating the love, strength, and freedom that define parenthood.
Forests are more than just trees, they are life itself. Vandana Shiva's journey into ecology began in the Himalayan forests, where nature became her teacher and inspiration. Vandana Shiva grew up in the Himalayan region, deeply influenced by its forests and her parents' values. Her mother's songs celebrated trees in the forest civilizations of India. These experiences shaped her ecological understanding and future activism. Shiva became part of the Chipko movement in the 1970s, a nonviolent protest led by peasant women to protect forests. Deforestation caused landslides, floods, and resource shortages, impacting women the most. Women hugged trees and sang. What do the forests bear? Soil, water, and pure air. One powerful movement occurred in Adwani village when women resisted deforestation, even confronting their own families. Inspired by Chipko, Vandana Shiva founded Navdanya in 1987 to conserve biodiversity and promote organic farming. Navdanya's accomplishments include conserving 3,000 rice varieties, setting up 100+ community seed banks, encouraging farmers to transition from chemical-based monocultures to biodiverse organic systems. Vandana Shiva emphasizes nature as the ultimate teacher. Unity in diversity. Forests teach coexistence and cooperation among species. Unfairness. Sustainable living without greed or exploitation. Harmony. Finding balance and joy in respecting nature's limits. Inspired by Rabindranath Tagore, she highlights the forest as a source of knowledge, beauty, and freedom. Shiva advocates for recognizing nature's rights, as seen in Ecuador's constitution and the global Earth democracy movement. She criticizes industrial monocultures and the exploitation of nature, calling it eco-apartheid. Through Navdanya's Earth University, people learn sustainable practices and embrace interconnected living. The forest teaches us compassion, harmony, and the joy of living sustainably. Vandana Shiva's journey reminds us to reconnect with nature, for our well-being in the Earth's survival.
We're diving into the lesson summary of A Sunny Morning, a one-act play by the famous Spanish playwrights Serafin and Joaquín Álvarez Quintero. Set in a park in Madrid, this delightful tale is about chance encounters, hidden identities, and the passage of time. The play opens with Dona Laura, a refined lady in her senior years, enjoying a peaceful moment on a park bench. She's quietly feeding the pigeons and soaking in the warm sunlight. Enter Don Gonzalo, an elderly man with a bit of a grumpy demeanor. He's looking for a place to sit, and the only available spot is next to Dona Laura. Their initial interaction is filled with mild irritation. Dona Laura accuses Don Gonzalo of disturbing her peace by scaring the pigeons, while he complains about having to sit next to a woman. Their playful bickering softened as they shared a pinch of snuff. As they continue their conversation, Dona Laura and Don Gonzalo begin to share stories about their pasts, but here's the catch, they're not being completely truthful. Dona Laura tells a story about her best friend, a beautiful woman who had a passionate romance with a charming young man. She speaks of their grand adventures and the love they shared. Don Gonzalo shares his own tale of a cousin, a heroic man who once won the heart of that very beautiful woman. They both narrate tales of someone they pretend to know just to hide their true identities. But why? They both wish to relive the excitement of their youth and avoid facing the reality of their current ages. Dona Laura, though older, wants to feel the thrill of being admired and desired. She enjoys pretending that the exciting romance she's describing is about someone else, rather than herself. Similarly, Don Gonzalo enjoys the idea of being a gallant young man once again. By claiming the heroic acts are those of his cousin, he can live in a world of youthful adventure without confronting his own aging reality. As their conversation continues, little hints start to emerge, and both Dona Laura and Don Gonzalo begin to realize something strange. These stories they've been sharing might not be so fictional after all. Eventually, they start piecing together the truth. Dona Laura realizes that the man Don Gonzalo is describing sounds strikingly like her former lover, and Don Gonzalo starts to recognize elements of his own past in Dona Laura's tale. The play ends with both Dona Laura and Don Gonzalo realizing that they've not only found old memories of love but also a new friendship. They might be older now, but their connection is real and genuine. A Sunny Morning teaches us that while time may change our circumstances, it doesn't diminish the importance of human connection. It also reminds us that sometimes, our greatest adventures can come when we least expect them.
When You Are Old, by W.B. Yeats, a touching poem that reflects on love, aging, and the passage of time. This poem is written as a heartfelt message from Yeats to a woman he loves. He asks her to imagine herself in the future, as an elderly woman sitting by the fire, reflecting on her youth and beauty. In the first stanza, the poet paints a vivid image of old age. He asks the woman to recall how her eyes once held a soft, enchanting look, and how shadows of depth lay within them. In the second stanza, the poet reflects on how many admired her grace and beauty. Some loved her genuinely, while others were superficial. But only one man, the poet himself, truly loved her for her pilgrim soul, her inner self, and for the sorrows and changes that life brought her. The last stanza is filled with sadness. He speaks of love leaving her, escaping to the mountains and hiding among the stars. This symbolizes how love fades when not cherished deeply. When You Are Old is a moving reflection on the nature of love and the passage of time. The poet contrasts shallow admiration with the enduring power of true love, one that values the soul over mere appearances. The poem gently reminds us to treasure those who love us for who we truly are. The poet's timeless words resonate with anyone who has experienced love and loss. As we grow older, it's the memories of true love that bring the deepest emotions.
The Gardener is not just about a plantation, it's about human nature, competition, and the stories we tell ourselves to make sense of our lives. An old man walks into a plantation, hired for his expertise, but he brings more than just agricultural skills. He brings change, both to the land and to the lives of those around him. Under his guidance, the plantation thrives, but something unexpected happens. The owner, once hardworking, begins to indulge in his newfound wealth. He grows lazy, surrounded by luxury. The garden prospers, but the man's soul withers. Worried by these changes, the owner's wife is told a story by the old man. He shares a story of two men, Tamina and Basavaya, whose rivalry starts with land and wealth but evolves into something deeper. Tamina uses art to fight, creating ballads that make him famous. Basavaya, consumed by anger, fills his life with riches but cannot escape the emptiness left by his failure to outdo Tamina. Tamina's art becomes his weapon, his fame grows, while Basavaya's wealth feels hollow. The story asks a powerful question: is material success enough, or is there something deeper we need to feel truly fulfilled? As the old man tells his story, he reflects on the human need for competition, vengeance, and how we often live for that one thing that drives us. His lesson is clear: competition can consume us, but it's the stories we tell ourselves that define our lives. In the end, Tamina's rivalry leads to his own downfall as he pretends to die and leaves town. On the other hand, Basavaya's wealth fails to fill the void left by his obsession of competing with Tamina and he eventually dies. As for the old man, he himself is Tamina, left with nothing to live for. The old man's story teaches us a valuable lesson: life is not just about wealth or success. It's about understanding our deeper motivations, embracing art, and reflecting on our actions. This poem is a metaphorical journey of life, using the child's foot as a symbol. It traces the transition from childhood innocence and freedom to the burdens and realities of adulthood. The poem begins with the child's foot, unaware of its purpose. It dreams of freedom, flying like a butterfly or resting as an apple on a tree. But soon, life introduces obstacles like stones and paths, teaching it that it cannot escape its destined role of walking. As the child grows, the foot is confined in a shoe. This shoe symbolizes life's restrictions. In the dark, the foot learns about the world in a limited way, much like a blind person feeling their surroundings. It begins to lose its original innocence. Over time, the soft, delicate foot becomes rough and hardened. Its nails grow tough, and its once petal-like toes take on a distorted shape, resembling eyeless reptiles. This represents how life's challenges change us, toughening our spirit but taking away our innocence. The foot continues to work tirelessly, walking through the ups and downs of life. It symbolizes human struggle and the endless responsibilities we bear until we finally rest. In the end, the foot is buried, unaware of its fate. The poem leaves us with a mystery: has the foot been freed or transformed into something new? This reflects the uncertainty of what comes after life. To summarize, the poem captures the journey of life, from the freedom and innocence of childhood to the struggles of adulthood and the inevitability of death. It teaches us to reflect on how life changes us while reminding us of its mysteries.
Now, we dive into the profound words of Georges Louis Borges, one of the greatest literary minds of the 20th century. In his interview with Robert Alfano,
Borges shares his thoughts on literature, life and why books will never disappear. Borges begins by recounting his early love for books. Raised in his father's library, his first literary encounter was Grimm's fairy tales. He admits that this library shaped him far more than formal education ever did. When asked about his mother Donna Leonore, Borges describes her as kind, intelligent and gracious. He expresses regret for not bringing her more happiness during her life, a sentiment many of us can relate to only after losing our loved ones. Borges also speaks about his blindness, which became a defining part of his life. Yet he didn't see it as a limitation. Instead he called it a resource, a source of inspiration for art and creativity. He believed that all of life's experiences, including hardships, serve as material for artistic expression. In a dream, Borges saw the great library of Alexandria consumed by flames. This dream reflected his deep love for books and his fear for the potential loss. But Borges firmly believed books will never disappear. He argues that while inventions like the telephone and telescope extend our physical abilities, books are unique, they extend our imagination and memory. For Borges, literature is nothing less than a dream. He says, books are the greatest memory of all centuries. If books disappear, history and humanity would disappear too. Powerful words that remind us of the irreplaceable role books play in preserving culture and knowledge. Moving on to poetry, Borges describes it as something magical and unexplainable. He believes poetry is not just the words on the page, but the connection it creates between the poet and the reader. He highlights the importance of precise language, using Emily Dickinson's line, "This quite dust was gentlemen and ladies," as a perfect example of how the right words create poetry. On metaphors, Borges claims there are a few essential ones found across all cultures. They are time and river, life and dreams, death and sleep, stars and eyes, and flowers and women. These timeless symbols form the foundation of human expression, connecting us through shared understanding. In this interview, Borges reminds us why books are eternal. They hold the dreams, memories, and imagination of humanity, transcending time. As he beautifully states, among all the inventions of man, the book is the most astounding.
Have you ever stopped to admire the world around you and felt that there's something divine in its beauty? Kuvempu, a celebrated poet and thinker, tells us in his poem Heaven, "If you are not here on earth, that heaven is not a faraway, mystical place. Instead, it is right here, within reach, in the beauty of nature and in the goodness of humanity." Let's explore this thought-provoking poem together. Kuvempu begins his poem by challenging the conventional idea of heaven and gods. He argues that if we, as humans, cannot embody divine qualities, like kindness, love, and compassion, then the existence of gods in heaven elsewhere is meaningless. This bold statement urges us to realize that divinity is not found in distant realms but within us. Through our actions and virtues, by being kind, helping others, and spreading positivity, we can make this world heavenly. The poet beautifully describes nature to show us what heaven looks like. Imagine standing by a roaring stream or watching waves gently touch the shore. The golden sunlight shining softly on green gardens, that is heaven, right here on earth. For Kuvempu, the harmony and beauty of nature are proof that heaven isn't far away, it's all around us. He goes on to highlight the abundance of the harvest and the serene beauty of moonlight. These moments remind us to appreciate the gifts of nature, which make our lives feel divine. Heaven isn't just a concept, it's an experience, one we live every day if we take the time to notice it. Kuvempu also celebrates the power of creativity. For him, the act of creating something beautiful, whether it's a poem, a painting, or a piece of music, is like creating heaven on earth. When a poet writes words that touch our hearts or an artist paints something that moves us, they bring a piece of heaven into our lives. This creativity connects us to the divine and makes the world a better place. Kuvempu's poem carries a simple yet profound message: we don't need to search for heaven elsewhere. It is already here, in the beauty of nature, in the goodness of human actions and in the creative works of people. Heaven is not a place, it's a state of mind, a way of living and a recognition of the blessings around us. So, how can we make our lives heavenly? By appreciating the beauty around us, by being kind to one another, and by creating joy in whatever we do. Have you ever wondered what makes different cultures unique? Today, we'll explore two fascinating countries, Japan and Brazil, through a traveler's eye. In this travelogue, we see how cultural habits shape everyday life, whether it's the art of bowing in Japan or the chaotic yet humorous traffic in Brazil. In Japan, respect is key. Living on a crowded island, personal space is rare, so politeness fills the gap. Japanese people are known for their intricate bowing, a gesture that reflects deep respect based on age, rank, and social position. Bowing isn't just ceremonial, it's an essential part of daily interaction. There's even a hierarchy to it. How deeply you bow depends on who you're interacting with. It's a subtle but powerful way to show respect. Even animals, like deer, seem to mimic this behavior, as if they, too, are part of the culture. Yet, when the bus arrives, the calm bowing transforms into a chaotic scramble, a humorous contradiction in Japanese manners. One peculiar aspect of Japanese culture is eating soup. You're expected to slurp it loudly to show appreciation, but this can be confusing for foreigners. If you don't slurp, your hostess might think you're rude, but if you do, you risk appearing ill-mannered by your own cultural standards. So, this was about Japan. Now, let's head to Brazil, a land where people have a relaxed attitude, until they get behind the wheel. On foot, Brazilians are calm, appreciating the beauty of their surroundings, like the mosaic-decorated streets of Copacabana. But once in a car, the peaceful attitude vanishes. Drivers here love speed, and pedestrians must jump for safety. Interestingly, Brazilian drivers aren't angry, they actually smile while cutting each other off. It's a friendly yet competitive environment, where every driver is out to win, but with no hostility. Crossing the Avenida Presidente Vargas is a challenge. It's a place where people joke about being born on one side of the road, because the traffic is so dense, crossing seems impossible. A humorous moment shows two friends shouting across the street, trying to understand how the other crossed. Through these stories, we see the fascinating contrast between Japan's calm, respectful culture, and Brazil's chaotic yet laid-back lifestyle. Both countries are rich in tradition, but they express it in their unique ways. This story, like much of Achebe's work, explores African society, culture, and politics, blending humor and irony to convey deep truths about human nature and governance. Let's break it down. Our main character is Rufus Okiki, known as Roof. He is a young man who chose to return to his village, Amuofia, after working in the city. This decision made him a popular figure because unlike others, Roof decided to help his community instead of chasing a city life. He became an expert in political campaigning, which is why Chief the Honorable Marcus Ibe, a wealthy minister from the People's Alliance Party, PAP, trusted him for his re-election campaign. Amuofia's politics were heavily influenced by wealth. Marcus Ibe was seen as a symbol of success. Once a struggling teacher, he became rich and powerful through politics, owning cars and building a mansion. But the villagers were not blind. They realized the power of their votes and demanded money in exchange for their support. Marcus, understanding this, used bribes and gifts to secure loyalty. Roof was Marcus's trusted campaigner, but he wasn't immune to the temptation of bribes. He accepted money from Marcus to distribute among voters, convincing them to support PAP. However, things took a twist when a rival party, the Progressive Organization Party, POP, approached Roof with a larger bribe of £5. They even brought a sacred object, an EE, to make him swear loyalty. Roof was now torn. He had pledged loyalty to Marcus but feared breaking the oath to POP. On election day, the village was buzzing. Marcus had hired a high-life band to entertain voters and Roof worked tirelessly to ensure everyone voted for PAP. But when it was Roof's turn to vote, his internal conflict came to a head. He couldn't betray Marcus, but he also couldn't break his oath to POP. His solution: tear the ballot paper in half and put one piece in each box. We know, that kind of vote is not considered at all. But still, Roof did it to pacify his guilt for having to choose to betray either of the parties. It was a clever act of compromise, symbolizing the personal and political dilemma in a corrupt system. The voter highlights the complexities of politics, the influence of money, and the moral dilemmas people face. Roof represents the everyday individual, caught between loyalty, greed, and survival. The story criticizes the flawed electoral process, showing how corruption undermines democracy. It also reminds us of the power and responsibility of the ballot. Today, we explore a remarkable social movement that unfolded in Pudukkottai, Tamil Nadu, where cycling transformed the lives of rural women. Let's uncover how a humble bicycle became a powerful symbol of freedom, confidence, and independence in one of India's poorest districts. Cycling became a lifeline for over 1 lakh neo-literate rural women. Through the Arivoli Iyakam, Light of Knowledge movement, this movement empowered women to break barriers, reduce dependency, and reclaim their mobility. Meet Jamila Bibi, who declared cycling as her right. Now I don't have to wait for buses, she says, ignoring the derogatory remarks society threw at her. Then there's Fatima, a school teacher so passionate about cycling that she rents a bicycle every evening because she can't afford her own. For her, cycling is about feeling independence and freedom. The impact of cycling went beyond mobility. It 1. Saved time by eliminating the need to wait for buses. 2. Boosted income as women could sell goods in more villages. 3. Enabled multitasking as women carried children, water pots, and goods while cycling. But more than economics, the movement gave women self-respect and confidence, a sentiment echoed by Fatima when she said, "Cycling brings goodness and independence." Women initially faced societal resistance, enduring character attacks, and filthy remarks. Yet, under the guidance of N. Kanimal and the Arivoli movement, they overcame these hurdles. Public contests, rallies, and songs encouraged women to cycle, making it a community effort. The movement owes much to Sheila Rani Chunkath, Pudukkottai's district collector in 1991. Her efforts included training women activists to teach cycling, providing bank loans for bicycles, incorporating mobility into the literacy drive. Her leadership turned cycling into a district-wide phenomenon, inspiring over 70,000 women to participate in public contests. On International Women's Day 1992, over 1,500 women cyclists stunned Pudukkottai in a massive rally. This humble bicycle became a metaphor for freedom, allowing women to break patriarchal norms and reshape their lives. As Kanimal aptly put it, for rural women, cycling is like flying an airplane. Through cycling, women in Pudukkottai found more than just mobility, they found hope, confidence, and liberation. This movement reminds us that even small changes can have a profound impact. Water is essential for life, yet throughout history, it has also symbolized struggle and inequality. In this poem, Chalapalli Swarupa Rani shows how water connects to pain, survival, and the fight for dignity. The poet highlights the agony of those who were denied access to water. The Panchama, forced to wait for someone from a higher caste to fill his pot, represents the caste-based discrimination that denied basic human rights. But water also becomes a symbol of defiance. Suvarthamma fought against oppressive landlords, standing up for her dignity. Water is not just a necessity, it reflects the deep inequalities of society. While some bathe freely, others struggle to fetch water, walking miles with heavy pots. This stark contrast highlights the divide between the privileged and the oppressed. Water also became the center of larger struggles for rights, the Mahad Satyagraha, where people, especially Dalits, fought for their right to access public water tanks. Water's role goes beyond survival, it's tied to movements for justice. The Mahad Satyagraha is one such example, where people fought for the right to access water, not just as a resource but as a matter of equality. Over time, water turned into a commodity, now sold in bottles, while the fight for access continues to be a struggle for many. Water also reveals the contradictions in society. The poet recalls the humiliation of a lower caste girl, who is touched by an upper caste man while he pours water for her, despite being considered untouchable. This highlights the painful reality where the same society that refuses to touch them often violates their dignity. The poet reflects on their childhood, remembering how they walked long distances to fetch water while others bathed luxuriously. This inequality was not just about water, it was a clear symbol of social status and oppression. Water is a powerful symbol of life, survival, and injustice. For some, it's a gift, for others, it's a constant battle. The poem reminds us that water has witnessed centuries of struggle, and its story is one of inequality and resistance. Water connects us all. It's time to reflect on how something so simple can shape lives, divide societies, and fuel struggles for justice. Let's work toward a world where water flows freely for everyone, equally. That's all. Short, simple and concise. You can access the English summary document and quiz links from the description. Thank you for watching and all the best.